Nye.
Imagine working like a brutal 12-hour shift.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you're just totally exhausted, your whole body is aching, and you take your entire day's paycheck straight to the market.
Right.
But when you finally get there, all that money buys is one single loaf of bread.
A single loaf.
Right. It's not nearly enough to feed your family. I mean, it's barely enough to keep just you alive so you can wake up and do the exact same thing tomorrow.
Yeah, it's bleak.
It sounds like, the setup for some modern dystopian thriller or something. But that exact economic equation is actually a blueprint from a 2,000-year-old piece of apocalyptic literature.
It really is.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are so thrilled you are joining us today because your mission is to explore one of the most chilling, hyper-realistic sequences of societal collapse ever put to paper, which is the third seal of Revelation.
Yeah, and it really is just a staggering piece of ancient writing. I mean, when we look at the historical context and the sheer mechanical detail of what's being described here,
It's intense.
it is. It completely stops reading like, abstract dark fantasy and starts looking like a very precise sequence of systemic breakdown.
Right.
We're basically going to track a massive, devastating shift from global warfare into extreme famine and then straight into hyperinflation and authoritarian rationing.
Right. And our main goal today is to unpack the core image of that famine. The famous black horse and its rider.
Exactly.
We really want to understand the cause and effect here. Like, how does a society actually fall from war to starvation? And what do these very specific ancient symbols tell us about authoritarian control, the collapse of civil order, and ultimately divine judgment?
It's a lot to unpack.
It is.
Well, this literature is highly symbolic, heavily layered, but the underlying social and economic mechanisms it describes...
They're super relatable, right?
Oh, completely. They are instantly recognizable to anyone studying modern history or, honestly, modern economics.
Yeah, so let's start with how this crisis actually begins, because the famine doesn't just, magically appear out of nowhere.
No, it doesn't.
There is a very specific sequence happening with the seals. The first rider brings this false temporary peace.
Right.
Then the second rider shatters that peace with global war. And it's only after the war starts that the black horse of famine arrives.
Yes, the sequence is key.
But I have to push back on that sequence for just a second because, historically speaking, don't major wars usually stimulate economies?
That's a common thought, yeah.
Right. We always hear about wartime production booms, factories running around the clock, massive government spending. So why does this specific conflict trigger an immediate catastrophic agricultural collapse?
See, that is a great question because it really highlights the difference between a regional conflict and total systemic warfare.
Oh, okay.
Like you're thinking of a localized war where a society's infrastructure remains largely intact to support the war effort. The home front.
Right. People going to work at the factory.
Exactly. But the conflict described in the second seal is a total collapse of order. It's systemic.
So no home front at all?
None. In this context, famine is the direct mechanical consequence of that specific kind of global war. When systemic warfare breaks out on this scale, it actively destroys the foundational pillars of society.
So it's not just armies fighting on a designated battlefield somewhere, far away from the cities.
Far from it. We're talking about a scorched earth reality here. Yeah, the infrastructure is physically annihilated. And think about the logistics of ancient and even modern agriculture.
It takes a lot of coordination.
Immense stability. If a massive conflict erupts, the people who would normally be planting crops or tending to livestock or driving the transport wagons, they're just gone.
They're fighting.
Right. They're either conscripted by force to fight or they're fleeing as refugees. So the fields are completely abandoned.
I see. And I guess even if a farmer manages to grow something, getting it to a city requires a functioning supply chain.
Which is completely crippled by the conflict. I mean, bridges are destroyed, trade routes are too dangerous to travel.
Yeah, you get robbed immediately.
Exactly. And the livestock used to transport goods are either slaughtered by roaming armies or they're just left to starve.
Man.
So this isn't merely a drought or a string of bad harvests due to weather. This is a man-made destruction of the entire agricultural and logistical supply chain.
It's total devastation.
It is. Interestingly, early Christian literature often links this specific ancient vision directly to the words of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 24.
Oh, right, the Olivet Discourse.
Exactly. There, a prediction is made detailing this exact causal chain. Like, Nation rising against nation, immediately followed by famines in various places.
Wow, so the war is the trigger.
It's the direct trigger. The claim is that this sequence, triggered by unprecedented global war, will basically result in the most devastating famine in human history.
It's a total breakdown of the logistics of survival.
Yeah.
I mean, think of our modern global supply chains. They operate like a tightly wound clock.
Oh, absolutely.
We rely on that, just-in-time delivery for almost everything in our grocery store.
Yeah, the shelves would empty in days.
Right. If you remove just a few crucial gears like international shipping lanes or even just truck drivers, the whole system just snaps.
Instantly.
It sounds like that is the scale of what's happening here, which I guess brings us to the visual representation of this specific collapse.
The black horse.
Exactly. John, the author of Revelation, uses the word behold when the third seal is broken. The wording implies he is, absolutely stunned by what he's looking at.
He's terrified.
And the horse galloping toward him is black. But why that specific color? I mean, is it just a generic symbol for death or mourning, or is there a deeper physiological meaning here?
Oh, it is intensely physiological.
Really?
Yeah. To understand the color black in this context, we really have to connect it to the broader scope of biblical literature. In those texts, black is intrinsically associated with the physical horrors of famine.
Okay.
There's actually a direct historical line from this black horse back to the devastating descriptions found in the Old Testament book of Lamentations,
Yeah.
specifically the 4th chapter.
Wait, Lamentations, wasn't that written in the immediate aftermath of the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And that's crucial. The author of Lamentations was an eyewitness to one of the most brutal sieges in antiquity.
Wow.
He literally watched his entire city slowly starve to death over a period of many months.
That's horrifying.
It is. So when we ask why the horse is black, we really have to look at what extreme, prolonged starvation physically does to the human body.
Okay, what does it do?
Well, the writer of Lamentations documented the victims of that siege by stating, quote, "Their visage is blacker than a coal."
Blacker than a coal. Wait, that isn't a metaphor, is it? That's describing a literal biological reaction to starvation.
It is horrifyingly literal, yeah. Severe malnutrition, specifically a deficiency in niacin, which is known as pellagra.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, combined with extreme dehydration, it actually causes a severe darkening, thickening, and cracking of the skin.
Oh, my God.
As the body begins to shut down and, consume its own muscle and fat reserves, necrosis sets in.
That is awful.
The ancient texts go on to detail how these formerly healthy people become completely unrecognizable to their own friends in the streets.
They wouldn't even know them.
Right. The skin, as the text describes, quote, "cleaveth to their bones, and they wither away until they become like a stick."
So John isn't just seeing a dark-colored animal. He is seeing the literal biological manifestation of necrosis and starvation galloping onto the world stage. You can totally understand why he was shocked.
Absolutely. And the ancient writings actually make a very stark, tragic comparison just to emphasize the sheer agony of this process.
What do they compare it to?
Well, it explicitly states that those who are slain quickly by the sword, meaning the victims of the previous rider, the Red Horse of War.
Right.
The war.
Okay.
They are actually the fortunate ones.
Because it's fast.
Exactly. They die instantly. But the victims who survive the war only to face the Black Horse, they suffer a vastly different fate.
A much worse one.
Yeah. The text says they pine away, stricken through for want of the fruits of the field.
Wow.
They're forced to endure this slow, agonizing demise as their bodies literally consume themselves over weeks or even months.
That paints just a grim, grim picture of the bodily devastation. But, the rider on this horse is carrying an object that shifts our focus away from the individual physical body and onto the broader society.
Yes, the scales.
Right. The rider is holding a pair of scales in his hand. Now, in modern Western culture, a pair of scales is almost always a symbol of Lady Justice, right?
Sure.
It represents fairness, equity, the law. But it really doesn't sound like this rider is arriving to hand out justice.
No, not at all. The scales here represent something entirely different and, frankly, far more sinister.
Okay, what is it?
They symbolize severe rationing and the weaponization of scarcity.
Weaponization.
Yeah. In ancient Middle Eastern literature, including Old Testament passages like Leviticus 26 and Ezekiel 4, you'll often see this phrase, bread by weight.
Bread by weight.
And that phrase is always a harbinger of extreme, desperate scarcity.
Because if you have an abundance of grain, you just scoop it out with a bucket, right? You only break out the jeweler's scales to measure flour when every single ounce is the difference between life and death.
Exactly. When a society is reduced to weighing its basic sustenance on a scale, it means the food supply has effectively vanished.
It's gone.
Completely gone. And we have historical corollaries for this.
Yeah.
Think of the aftermath of World War II in Eastern Europe,
Oh, yeah.
or the modern realities of war-torn nations in the Middle East or Africa today.
Yeah.
What do those scales actually look like in practice?
Probably pretty bleak.
Very.
Yeah.
They look like starving citizens standing in endless, desperate bread lines, waiting for hours or even days just to receive a heavily monitored cup of flour or a tiny sack of grain.
So the scales really represent the ultimate collapse of civil order, like when the populace is physically withering away and all the available food is locked behind a government scale, society fractures.
Inevitably.
And the text doesn't just leave it at a vague concept of rationing either. It actually gives us a highly specific economic equation.
Yes, the voice.
Right. Following the black horse, a voice calls out and declares, "A quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius." Can you unpack the economics of this? Like, what was a denarius actually worth to the original readers?
This is where the math becomes deeply, deeply unsettling, because it illustrates an environment of insurmountable socioeconomic unrest. In the first century Roman economy, a denarius wasn't just pocket change.
Right, it was a big deal.
It was the standard, universally recognized equivalent of a common laborer's daily wage.
Okay.
It was the payment for a full 12 hours of grueling, back-breaking work.
Okay, so let's play this out. I work all day, sunrise to sunset, and my boss hands me 1 denarius.
Yep.
Under normal peacetime conditions, what would that denarius actually buy me?
Well, in a stable Roman economy, a denarius would buy you enough wheat to feed a large family for several days.
Oh, okay.
Plus, leaving you money for other necessities like oil, wine, or clothing. I mean, it was a livable wage.
That makes sense.
But the voice in this vision dictates that this entire day's wage will now only buy 1 single quart of wheat.
1 quart.
1 quart. And historically, a quart of wheat provides roughly enough nutritional calories to sustain 1 single adult person for 1 day.
Man, think about the terrifying reality of that math. 100% of your daily income buys exactly enough calories to keep only yourself alive for that single day.
Yes.
The math of survival is completely broken. If you have a spouse, if you have children, or if you're caring for elderly parents, your daily labor mathematically cannot sustain them.
It's impossible.
The premium food is just simply out of reach.
Which means the average person is faced with a horrific dilemma. Basic survival on wheat is mathematically impossible for a family. So what's their alternative?
Right, what do they do?
Well, the voice offers a second equation. 3 quarts of barley for a denarius.
Okay, so you switch to barley because you get 3 times the volume for the exact same price.
Exactly.
You can feed 3 people instead of 1.
You can, but there is a massive catch.
What's the catch?
Barley is a fundamentally lower nutritional grain. In the ancient world, it was heavily looked down upon.
Really?
Yeah, it was rough, it was hard to digest, and honestly, it was primarily grown and used as livestock feed.
Oh, wow. So a laborer is working a full 12-hour shift, exhausting whatever calories they have left, and their only option to keep their family breathing is to buy a small sack of animal feed.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
And even then, 3 quarts of barely digestible livestock feed split among an entire family would still leave them chronically malnourished.
It's not enough.
No. Both of these economic scenarios depict literal starvation wages. Daily labor entirely fails to cover the basic cost of survival.
Wow.
And this kind of hyperinflation creates an environment where civil unrest just explodes because the populace is backed into a corner of utter desperation.
But hold on, let's look at the mechanics of this inflation for a second. Because prices like that, a full day's wage for a handful of wheat, they don't just magically happen.
Right.
I mean, in a totally free market, sure, prices fluctuate based on supply and demand, but to lock in those specific hyperinflated prices and physically hold the scales requires an authority.
Yes, it does.
It sounds like whoever is rationing the food is actually making it harder on the people intentionally. Like, are we looking at a situation where a government is using this famine as a tool?
See, that is a critical observation, and it leads perfectly into the broader narrative of authoritarian control in apocalyptic literature.
Okay.
The text is describing rations that are being dealt out by a centralized authority at an intentionally oppressive price.
Intentionally?
Yes, because when a society is starving, whoever controls the scales effectively controls the populace.
Because if the government holds all the grain, you can't exactly go out and protest the government.
Not if you want to eat.
Right. If you step out of line, your family doesn't eat that night. It becomes the ultimate mechanism for total submission.
Precisely. Autocratic regimes, both historically and, in the context of this apocalyptic vision, they use the rationing of scarce resources to maintain strict political dominance.
Wow.
Within the broader framework of the Book of Revelation, this famine is often understood as occurring under the regime of the Antichrist.
Oh, the Antichrist.
Oh, yeah. The socioeconomic unrest caused by this extreme rationing is actually meant to destabilize society.
Oh, so it's a feature, not a bug.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It allows the regime to enforce absolute compliance among its followers. The high, oppressive prices ensure that the citizenry is entirely dependent on the state.
They have no other options.
None. They have no energy left to rebel because they are working to exhaustion every single day just to receive a meager ration of animal feed.
It is just a bleak picture of human governance exploiting a catastrophic tragedy to solidify its own power.
It is. But this is where the text introduces a massive, paradigm-shifting plot twist.
A plot twist.
Yeah, because the oppressive government on Earth might be the ones physically holding the scales and handing out the meager rations, right?
Right.
But they aren't actually the ones calling the shots.
Wait, really?
Really. Remember, John doesn't just see the rider on the black horse. He hears a voice declaring the prices.
The quart of wheat and the barley.
Exactly. And the text is incredibly specific about the geographical location of that voice.
Okay, where is the voice coming from?
This is arguably the most profound theological point in the entire passage.
Really?
Yeah, the voice dictating these hyperinflated prices doesn't come from the rider of the black horse. And it certainly doesn't come from an earthly dictator or some human king.
Then who is it?
John hears the voice calling out from the center of the four living creatures.
Wait, let's clarify that for a second. What exactly are the four living creatures? Are we talking about angels, or is this some other kind of symbolic entity? And why does their location even matter?
Well, the four living creatures are the cherubim.
The cherubim.
Yeah, and in biblical literature, the cherubim are not, the chubby babies you see in Renaissance paintings.
Right, the little cupids.
Exactly, not them. They are fearsome, heavily armed spiritual beings whose primary function is to guard the holiness of God.
Oh, wow.
They're permanently stationed immediately around the heavenly throne. So, if John hears a voice originating from the direct center of the cherubim, the text is strongly implying that this is the voice of the one sitting on the throne.
Oh, I see.
It is the voice of God himself.
That completely reframes the entire sequence. Like, the autocratic government on Earth might think they are in control because they're holding the literal scales, but they are not the ultimate authority.
Not at all.
The earthly regime is just a middleman.
That is the crucial takeaway. The parameters of the famine, like the exact terrifying price of the wheat, the exact price of the barley, the limits of the devastation they are being set by a supreme higher power.
Wow.
The voice from the heavenly throne is dictating the global economy of this era.
Which serves as a stark reminder to the reader, honestly. It fundamentally changes the nature of the disaster.
Yes, it does.
Because the text is basically telling the reader that this famine isn't just a random byproduct of human war or, a failure of agricultural policy or even just an evil dictator flexing his muscles.
Right.
It is a direct, controlled, divine judgment.
And understanding that really changes how the original audience, and even a modern reader, interacts with the chaos of the black horse.
How so?
Because even in the midst of total socioeconomic collapse, where civil order has completely evaporated and corrupt governments are weaponizing scarcity to exploit a desperate populace.
Right, total chaos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even then, the text asserts an overarching theology. God is still on the throne.
He's still in control.
Exactly. The destruction has strict boundaries. The voice from the center of the cherubim sets the absolute limits.
Wow.
It is a terrifying reality to face, absolutely. But it asserts that the chaos is not completely unchecked. It is a sovereign judgment.
Yeah. And then, the text throws in this detail, do not damage the oil in the wine.
Which honestly always felt like such a weird, out-of-place instruction to me. Why mention luxury goods in the middle of a famine?
Because it shows exactly how inequality is weaponized during a collapse.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the roots of olive trees and grapevines go much deeper than surface-level grains like wheat and barley, so they can sometimes survive droughts that wipe out basic crops. But more importantly, oil and wine were the commodities of the wealthy.
I see where this is going.
Right. While the poor are mathematically priced out of basic weed and forced to eat animal feed just to survive, the luxury goods of the rich, The oil and wine are untouched. The wealthy can still enjoy their luxuries while the working class starves.
Wow. I mean, I complain when the price of eggs goes up 50 cents at the grocery store.
We all do.
But looking at this, I can't even fathom an economy where a loaf of bread costs my entire paycheck, while the billionaires are still drinking their fine wine. It redefines the word inflation.
It really does. It is the total collapse of societal prosperity. You are working yourself to the bone and you are gaining absolutely zero ground.
What's fascinating here is how the ancient text uses incredibly specific financial metrics, like comparing daily wages versus the exact caloric requirements of grain to illustrate this collapse.
It is a highly sophisticated economic understanding of disaster. It's not just fire and brimstone. It is inflation and supply and demand taken to their most lethal extremes.
It is a terrifying journey when you look at all the pieces together. We started with the logical domino effect, how the false peace is shattered by war and how that war destroys the supply chains and infrastructure, making famine the inevitable next step.
Right, the macro level. And from there, we examine the visceral, physical reality of that starvation.
The color black.
Yes. The shocking color black wasn't a metaphor for a ghost. It was the literal medical imagery of human beings pining away, their skin withering and cleaving to their bones over months of agony.
And finally, the oppressive, meticulously calculated economics of the writer's scales, the bureaucratic nightmare of starvation wages where a full day's labor buys nothing more than a day's worth of livestock feed.
All while the wealthy sip their wine untouched.
Exactly. So why should you care about an ancient apocalyptic vision from thousands of years ago? Because it demonstrates a profound, enduring understanding of how civilizations actually fracture.
Supply chains might be a modern buzzword, but they are an ancient vulnerability.
The mechanics of human suffering, the reality of infrastructure collapse, and the crushing weight of economic inflation, those things honestly haven't changed much over millennia.
No, they haven't. The only thing that has changed is the scale of the society it happens to. Human nature and the vulnerabilities of the systems we build remain remarkably consistent.
It creates a closed loop of sheer survival.
It does.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over today, something that really builds on everything we've talked about. The voice from the throne sets the prices exactly so that survival requires 100% of a person's daily labor just to acquire that low-grade animal feed.
A literal hand-to-mouth existence.
Exactly. Every single ounce of human energy is consumed by the desperate daily pursuit of a single quart of grain. And it makes you wonder, when an entire society is forced into that loop, when 100% of your energy goes into simply breathing until tomorrow morning, what happens to the rest of civilization?
That is the real question.
9.